Hey everyone, this is SM Pratt, and it's time for the Corona Q&A CoVideo. If you're new to the channel, these type of videos are a podcast long-form style. If this is something you're into, I do it every single month in Patreon, $10 tier and above. We have about 8 pages to go through. I try to consolidate a lot of the similar questions, and we're going to go ahead and get started with, by far, the most frequently asked question. How do you think COVID-19 will affect card selling in the short term and long term? So the TLDR, so far, it hasn't had much of an effect. I'll try to break this down in full detail in the Patreon monthly market recap video. Because I have so many to go through, I can't sit here for like 30 minutes explaining every bit of nuance. But the overall summary is that until this trickles down into the unemployment, I don't think it's going to have that much of an effect. While the stock market can be a canary in the coal mine, the main artery of economics is going to be employment, especially for something like Pokemon. The benefit of Pokemon being a younger hobby with a younger demographic is majority of their wealth isn't tied up in the stock market. So when people are spending in the hobby, it's typically because of direct income. So therefore, when that goes away, you'll start to see, more cards hit the market. Now, the biggest question everybody wants answered, this is unprecedented. So we don't know what's going to happen. What type of cards we'll see more than others. In my experience, and for probability as well, the low capital, high quantity cards have the highest probability of hitting the market for two big reasons. Number one, low capital hits the largest audience, and typically that is where you're going to run to people who are check to check. Surprisingly, people buying this stuff might have a bit more money. For example, a lot of the higher end clients I sell to, their collection might be worth $5 million. So let's say the market gets cut in half. That's still $2.5 million. You could still retire on that type of money. Where, people who are living check to check, you're in college, whatever your situation is, when you're spending $100 per month and that's your max, when that goes away, that's a very quick dive to zero. So therefore, items with a higher quantity, there's a higher probability they'll hit the market, and then also lower capital. You have lower capital, earners. Therefore, those are probably going to be the frequent offenders for, saturating the market. But again, this is unprecedented. What happened in 2009 is a little bit different than what's happening now. So the big questions are, will there be a vaccine? If there is, how quickly will it, rebound everything and revitalize everything? That's the big if. And I think that's going to be the thing that turns everything around. But until then, it's a wait and see. But so far, it hasn't affected cards yet. Fox says, hey, Scott, WotC set cards have had quite the boom lately. Some even tripled in price. Do you see the boom as permanent, or do you think we will grab some of these cards again, their 2019 prices? As it stands, without the COVID, without Corona, I don't know how you can find. It's basically, where's the cheaper option is the answer. Why prices have moved is because the cost of everything has moved and the supply has dropped. So when you keep doing this, when your AP ratio keeps separating further and further, that's just the natural outcome. So therefore, unless you see this flood of cards hit the market, if there is some type of recession scenario, I don't know what's going to drive that down in a major way. A lot of this stuff is just simply there's not enough supply, especially WotC. It's all expedited by raffles, mystery boxes, and all that good fun stuff. So therefore, there just isn't a lot of supply left out there. And even if you have packs and things like that, you're still running a risk. If you buy a pack now, especially at a premium, you open that thing up. If it's not PSA 10 like Typhlosion 17, you're not going to make your money back. So there really isn't a consistent option out there for, supply. So until that changes, maybe recession can change that. But until then, I just don't see a cheaper option. George says, Scott, how long have you known Rudy? What's the story there? So I know Rudy, basically, it's a mutual appreciation. I think Rudy and I are cut from a similar cloth. He definitely eats risk and shits profit way more than I do. He is not scared at all of risk. I'm a little more cautious than he is. But I think we had a similar life experience. I'm more on the philosophy side, have slight finance. He's more on the finance side, slight philosophy, if that makes sense. And you can see the dividends that it pays. Like when he makes his purchase orders, why I always say sperm to the sperm whale, but he's like, yeah, I just made a purchase order for $250,000 for one set. So he's someone that I think a lot of collectors admire because of what he does. And I'm in that camp as well. I think the only thing, we're kindred spirits in that we had like this similar experience of doing collecting when it wasn't cool. Now it is cool. You have all this knowledge because of that unique timeline. But yeah, it's just a mutual admiration. PFM says, in these tumultuous times, all caps, many people believe in the idea that better card condition always warrants a premium. As card condition approaches perfection, the difference becomes trivial, but the premiums grow exponentially, i.e. black labels. Do you think this mentality is permanent or of card collecting, or will it change over time? That's a really good question. I have to take a sip on that one. That's a really good question. So, for me, again, this is just me. I think black labels are absurd. The TLDRs, in short, I simply prefer rarity and uniqueness over a condition qualifier. And I think most people are in that camp. And I think a good way to explain this is if you imagine like the Pokemon game, you progress. And I think that's how a collector starts. You know, you start in Pallet Town, you start with what you grew up with, you progress through the game, and you try to go as far as you can, do as best as you can, you know, beat the Elite Four, maybe come back, do some speed runs. And I think that's how collecting is. You know, you start with what you know, you progress the sets, and you understand promos and things like that. The problem I have with black labels and getting so honed in on condition is that you get stuck. It's like you get stuck in the Safari Zone. You never leave. And that's, again, this is just my opinion, but I think there is some universal truth here in the progression of collecting. You know, you just keep climbing. You want more. You want to catch them all. Where black labels, and more specifically, there isn't really a premium for black labels outside of certain cards. In general, Beckett is really only a 9 to 10 range, and that really only applies to Charizards and some vintage. There's not many sales, and if they are, they're very infrequent and inconsistent. Black Label is even more inconsistent. It's only on those couple chase cards, those couple examples, and almost all of them are diminishing. So I think that's the biggest point there is, you know, when you go look at the actual collecting that's happening, there really isn't much organic interest. Because pretty much every Black Label goes like this and then like this. And then maybe it hits an inflection point and comes up a bit, but that first price, you'll probably never see that again. So I think that is the data trend to explain that, you know, condition for me, like 9 to 10 sometimes can be negligible. And I'm just not someone, again, I would prefer uniqueness and rarity over a condition qualifier. That's just me, but again, I think it does echo that, you know, that collecting path, that journey, where black labels, it's like people are just stuck in Safari Zone. Tyrone says, what card gives you the most cringe? Either artwork, the way it was released, or circumstances around it. That's a really good question. This could be its own video. A lot of these could be their own videos. Probably the Shiny Charizard GX. You know, just piggybacking off the previous question. When that thing hit 10K, everybody was just like, yeah, how low is it going to go? There's no way. There's a black label in like days. You know, now there's like, what, 127 black labels? Like, that's unbelievable. So, yeah, it's not even a year old, and it already has like basically a black label per day almost. So that is a great example. It was at 10K. Now, what is it, 1,000-ish or something like that? That's unbelievable. I've never seen such a drop so fast, especially in a bull economy. You know, this is before COVID. This is like bull market still. So yeah, that's probably the one that comes to mind. Goy from Discord says, Mysterious Pearl, Miracle Diamond, Wonder Platinum, nice looking cards, but also very different populations. I don't hear much about them compared to Scrolls or old trophy cards, but would love to hear something about them. So I think these cards sit on the fence between like niche and known. Why I think they aren't talked about as much as like a Scroll, Key, you know, old trophy cards is because certain cards, like a uni card, Trophy Kangaskhan, like a Scroll, just one and done. It's an individual card. I don't need to get other cards. It's just that one card. For me, and I think most collectors, most trophy card collectors, the line in the sand is like 2010. LP is where a lot of the desirable trophy cards end. While Mysterious Pearl, Miracle Diamond, and Wonder Platinum were towards the end of that, I don't really have that much of an affinity towards them. Especially because the Scroll, I think, is rarer, or at least comparable to the Pearl. I don't see as many Scrolls as the Pearl. I still see more Pearls today than I do the Scroll. Keep in mind, all these are like S-tier rarity. So therefore, I think a lot of people would rather just get that one Scroll, that one key, rather than try and complete like the Platinum, the Diamond, and the Pearl. But of course, the markets are so large, there's buyers for everything. There's every perception is out there. I think it just comes down to that premium, you know, especially when you're tying up that much capital for like a Platinum. For me, it's like, I'd rather just get enough Trophy Kangaskhan. Again, that's just me. But I think most people are in that camp. Because again, that individuality, if anything, the Scroll is stupid undervalued. That's why it's a meme on Discord, because it's so friggin' undervalued. It's like, this card is stupid rare, god tier rarity, and you know, it's a fraction of like something that is, some even less rare, that don't have unique cards. So anyway, I think it's that the individual card thing that sets it apart. Elfton Anime's room, this is like a Discord parade. Scotty Boy, given the current economic climate, is there now a time to sell off my investment waifu pillows at a premium for all the lonely people stuck in self-isolation? Also rate my new watch. You might actually have a point there. Memes aside, I don't know. There might be an opportunity. This might be the moment that waifu pillows have been waiting for. So seize the opportunity, seize the carp. Nike Swoosh says, what's the best way to ensure Pokemon card collection against fire theft? Entire collection value 10 to 15K. who would have it appraised? The short answer is basically bank vault and or safe with a gun if you live in a state or a country that allows that. It's not. I think most people go with bank vault. I've tried to talk about this before, but it's really hard because every collector has different needs, different size collection, different value. But most insurance companies aren't going to do a premium. If they do, it's going to be absolutely ridiculous. So most collectors usually do bank vault. PWC vault is probably the best, actually. PWCC, you could send it there. You pay a negligible percentage. It's ridiculous. Like it's like Fort Knox, and it's insured for whatever you want. So I would say PWCC for stuff you don't need to see every day. That's probably going to be your go-to answer. Bradley says, when does something in Pokemon become too niche for an investor? I've always agreed with collecting what you love, but not everything I have is for my collection. Just curious where you draw the line for yourself. That's tough because collecting in general is niche. And a lot of the markets that are created in hobbies come from cards that, fly under the radar. So there is no one answer. Something that I thought might be obscure 5 years ago might be booming today. Like, for example, Legendary Collection, Base 2, no one gave a solitary crap about them for years. And then 5 years ago or so, they exploded. So you really can't know outside of looking at the variables of like older rare mint or better, is there unique artwork? Is there a unique release? Is there an identity here that people aren't seeing? Other than that, it's really hard to say because most of this stuff is niche. And again, like Legendary Collection, that sat for almost 20 years doing nothing, and then all of a sudden, it went up. John Jacob said, "Hey Scott, do you think if PSA added 9.5 grade to their label, this would give them a greater edge in competition to BGS?" It's been something it's been discussed for a long time. So far, PSA has the larger market share, but I don't know what it'd be like implementing it now. I think that's the thing people be frustrated with. Even when the black label came out, the frustration was it feels contrived. It's after the fact. I remember thinking maybe PSA should do like a gold label or something like that. Now I don't really have that, sentiment anymore because what we've experienced with the black label, how it's become a meme. I think 9.5 is something that could help. I personally don't like the decimal point grades. That's just me, but I'm not big on the decimal point grades. I just like the nice round number. If I have an 8.5, just give me an 8. I'd rather even take an 8. Either give me an 8 or a 9. I don't want this 8.5. So that's just me personally, but I think there's other people in that camp. I think why the 9.5 gets a premium is because there's just money behind it. I don't think there is a huge organic interest in the 9.5. I think it's because more of a money direct cause rather than like a organic interest cause. But, maybe I'm off on that. That's just my interpretation. Toho TCG says, "Hey Scott, I've seen you and other creators express your frustration with PSA, the service they offer, and their seemingly disinterest to hire, two hires there, and get some expertise on board for Pokemon product. Given that we're aware of this kind of salary experience environment they provide, the current employment and graders, I'm curious to hear the package they'd have to offer you to entice yourself or someone in the collecting scene with adequate experience to come on board and help out. How far away are you from doing this, and do you ever really need to, given the stronghold that you have established in the grading market? Thanks for the informative videos. Peace." That's a really good question. So I've talked to PSA before. They've reached out to me multiple times about being a grader. I've talked to the president himself, and I remember the answer he gave me in general is that they can't afford to hire the best expert for every industry. Which part of me gets that, part of me doesn't. When you have something like Pokemon that's had growth more than anything in the past 5 years for PSA, maybe outside of modern sports, you should definitely hire something for that. And they simply don't. Like, it's a joke. Before they were paying $10 an hour for a trading card specialist. Now it's up to $16 an hour, which is still a joke. That's in California. You can go out here in the backwater Midwest and go to Amazon no lower than $15 or $16, and that's a much more livable wage than it is in California. So what would entice me, just like I've had ad offers and stuff where people are like, "Hey, I'll give you $1,000 per video." If you're not talking six figures and some type of yearly commitment, I'm not even listening. It's just not worth it. That's not a flex. It's just, that's not even half of my time value. So I just have to have enough compensation to dedicate that time, because that's what it would be. And I'm not going to leave, being my own boss and having all these other intangible benefits of waking up at whatever time I want, taking my time and, enjoying life to go work for a company that isn't going to compensate. So I think most people are in that camp. Kind of tying in the StockX thing, they were looking for a position similar, and that person that they want is not going to sacrifice the gig they already have. And that's where PSA is as well. The people that they need, they're not going to take that much of a cut in pay. It'd be like 5 steps backwards. So I don't think they're ever going to get that person because they're not willing to pay. They're going to have to throw around like hundreds of thousands of dollars to get the necessary people they need, and they're just not willing to do that. R1 says, my question is, are we really going to become best friends on Pokemon Go without sending me a single gift? Big if true. I have like so many friends of Pokemon Go. If you want to be my friend, whoever is watching this, you can. I put my code on E4 or Discord. I just don't have enough codes, I don't have enough gifts. When I was in Toronto recently, there's like Pokestops everywhere that I am in the hotel. It's not like that where I am, so it's hard for me to gift people. But yeah, it's definitely become a meme because I don't have enough to give. So yeah, that'll be the reality you face being friends with me on Pokemon Go. It's a one-way relationship. King Pokemon Gary says, if your house was on fire and you could only grab one armful of stuff to save, what would you grab? Of course, since your trophies are stored elsewhere, don't count those. It's a good question. First of all, Gary, my house probably wouldn't be on fire because I'm more of a Blastoise collector than a Charizard collector. But I really don't know. That's a tough one. I mean, actually, you can't see it off camera here of like one of my guitars. Maybe I'd grab that. Maybe more sentimental stuff. Yeah, that's a really tough one. More sentimental. A lot of the most valuable stuff isn't in my home. So that wouldn't be the concern. It would probably be the sentimental things, like guitars I've had for a long time, or, just things to me that have a lot of sentimental value. And it would be hard because I'd be sitting there like the flames are increasing. I'm like, all right, should I take this out? Oh, but yeah, it'd probably be the sentimental stuff. Soul 46 Reaper, where do collectors get information about certain air cards like no symbol, stage, set, number, misprint, etc. for different sets? Is there a source you read these things or you pick the information up over time? It's just multiple. I would say Bubblepedia is just the best general source. They have a decent amount there. You just search stuff, go to sets, you can read through air cards. I think if you search air cards on there, they have a good list, a general list of air cards. For this really niche stuff, everyone has their own ink blot and Howl Bleed now. That stuff is impossible to verify, but most consistent air cards are on Bubblepedia. B-Dog says, what do you recommend I do with all my Steam Siege booster boxes? I invested in them highly when I started watching your channel, and now with the coronavirus, I haven't been able to flip them on Instagram as easily. Well, they probably double as good toilet paper, so there you go if you need. And they're probably worth the same, too. I mean, you got a bunch of Steam Siege back here, so I wrote Steam Siege with marker on there. But yeah, they probably can double as some type of toilet paper or paper towels. Coiling says, hey, Scott, been on E4 for almost a year now, and it's been an overly positive experience. That's good to hear. My question, do you think Gym Leader or Evil Team Pokemon will appear in the Sword and Shield sets? Thanks, Swarm. Oh, I recognize that name. I've seen you on E4. I would like to see that. It's funny because I just put a poll up the other day, so I'm trying to keep those going. Favorite EX Nintendo era set, and I think first place was Team Rocket Returns. So I think there's definitely a demand for that. I really like that concept. Gym is similar. I remember when Gym came out, I was like, oh, this is cool. We could see like the Pokemon that Brock had, the Pokemon that Misty had, and LT Surge, not Lieutenant Surge. Yeah, I think it is. I think it's a thing that people would like to see. Of course, I'm not Pokemon, so I don't know if they would do that, but I think that is something that would be a nice idea. And like that poll, it's something that I think collectors appreciate. Next up, hey Scott, do you feel GMA grading is worth it for small investors as they increase the PSA later? Thank you. No, there's really only two grading companies, PSA and then Beckett. And one more time, PSA and then Beckett. Like, PSA is by far the answer for Pokemon. We all have our gripes with them and we wish certain things would improve, but they're still the standard. I wouldn't even bother with anything else. It's just a waste of time. Also, that label is meaningless. I have plenty of defunct grade company, cards over the past 15 years or whatever that they all say 10, and if I tried to cross on PSA, it'd be like a mix of 6, 7, 8 grades. So it really isn't worth it. I don't, even some of them, there's one that was good by a guy who Gary was friends with, and even then it's just like, get it in a PSA case. I don't want to even bother with that metric. That's just me personally, but I think most people share that sentiment. Make-A-Wish says, hey, Scott, is there a financial reason as to why anyone should hold on to a handful of light booster packs? I get why heavy and unweight packs should increase in value, but the large majority of packs on the market are just factory sealed worthless cards. Who's buying these in your opinion? Thank you to all the great questions. Okay, so that is a good question. There's a lot there. I'm going to try to do it quickly because we got a ton of questions to go through. But the TLDR is that packs and boxes have completely superseded the contents, like way beyond what they contain. Tying in one of the questions earlier about WotC prices, even if you open a weighed pack and you got the best pulls, you're probably at best just going to make your money back. You know, it's really hard to profit. Where if you go back a few years, it was easy to make money on them because the pack price and card ratio was pretty similar. Now it's so disconnected that, you know, these packs are being collected by people who just want the pack. You know, I'm part of that too. Like, I like to have a pack art, you know, especially like base and things like that. That's a huge category. Also, those raffles and all that stuff, while I don't like them, I have to, you know, analyze the market activity, and that stuff is raffled all the time. You know, light packs, heavy packs, whatever it is, and they have different premiums. So at the end of the day, the pack price card ratio has been off for a while, and it keeps getting further and further. I don't think there's much of a relationship there. I don't know how that's ever going to rebound because they've just become separate collectibles. And I think that's why people do buy the light packs, because some people just want to have a pack. You know, I remember saying this in Patreon for a long time. When base unlimited packs were under $100, I was like, it makes no sense why base unlimited packs are under $100, because there's so many people who could do like this with the games, put all 3 packs up very affordable. You know, I think that's a huge market, even outside of like serious Pokemon collectors. There's just peripheral people that'd be like, yeah, I'd like to get, you know, those packs I grew up with. So I think that's the general answer. Rico says, hey Scott, what are your thoughts on Pokemon's capacity to ride out a potential recession caused by COVID? Can we contrast scenario with how sports market was impacted during the great financial crisis? It's kind of what I said in the first question. I don't see, until we have some type of data and some type of answer on what unemployment looks like, I really don't expect much to change. But yeah, it's all uncharted territory. Again, the biggest answer is the low capital, high quantity cards are probably going to be the biggest offenders. Next up, it appears PSA was shortly not taking in any submissions due to the virus. Do you think anything would change if PSA would close down for a long time and people have to wait to submit their cards? So they were closed, and then they opened back up for a day, and now they're closed again. They're really just picking petals over there. And I think it's just going to be more of the same. They're still backed up. I think this is going to be even more backed up because you have more submissions coming in that they can't process. Yeah, I just expect more delays, which is frustrating. So many people have been waiting almost years now for this delay to be rectified, and they haven't. So I think this is just going to do more of that. But that's the economy at large. That's everything right now. There's a lot of things you can't do right now because of COVID. So we're just in the early stages. We haven't seen really the ripple effect yet. It's like we just dropped it in there. The ripples haven't hit everything. So it's still wait and see, even for PSA. Tyler Jackson says, hey Scott, I know the discussion around possible recession in the hobby as it relates to coronavirus is largely dependent on unemployment, as opposed to success in the stock market, with retailers, restaurants, gyms closing for foreseeable future long enough for the U.S. government to propose issuing stimulus checks. Do you think that would be enough to force a noticeable recession in the hobby? Again, tying in the other questions, I really don't know what's going to be the contributing factor. I think in recessions, there's definitely a cause, like in the last one, it was the housing, speculative, synthetic CDOs and all that nonsense. Where with this one, we just don't know. Corona is a weird one because it's an external variable. It's not like the economy organically went into a recession. It's like you have this external variable coming in. So every recession is different. Every moment is different. It's just wait and see right now. As of today, as of recording this, the stock market at least is not doing this crazy cowboy, like way down, up again, way down. Now it's trading like this. So maybe it's getting a little more comfortable. We're at a plateau, but you know, that might dip again. That might change again if this lingers. So basically we're wait and see, but you know, as you mentioned with unemployment, I think that's the main artery for all this. Clem Shamrock says, I've spent a lot of time hustling this petition. I get almost 200 signatures. I guess my question is the first edition stamp actually relevant, and what's it going to take to get it back on board? Love your videos. Keep on keeping on. Oh, okay. You're the person who always drops the link for the first edition stamp survey or whatever. It's tough. I would like to see the first edition stamp as a collector. As a realist, I think it's going to be bottlenecked by distributors. Distributors have a hold over product in a way that they didn't during the WotC era. In WotC times, in the 90s at least, everything was very strict. Even theme decks. You know, if you sold more than one theme deck to a customer, that's a problem. You could lose your contract with WotC. This is in the boom, the golden era of Pokemon. This is a true story. You had people getting in school buses, getting in a bus, and going in and saying, buy this deck for me, buy this deck for me, buy this deck for me. You know, these businesses would do that because they saw the potential value. So therefore, today how it works is distributors are just like, it's the Wild West. You know, distributors control everything. So therefore, if this happened right now, you know, your distributor pricing might triple for a first edition box, and there's nothing you can do about it. So I don't know how that would play out. I don't really know what that would do. I think it would be a lot of businesses stuck with product that would be hard to move, surprisingly, because the premium from distributor to them, usually distributors want to have this symbiotic relationship with the final business, you know, the final end of that. Pokemon, that doesn't exist. They only care about how many $1 bills they can make from each box. So therefore, I think it would just be bottlenecked by distributors. As a collector, I'd love to see it. It would make something interesting for Modern. It'd give us a challenge. But that'd be the biggest loss, is the distribution bottleneck. Anthony says, Scott, what are your thoughts on investing in mint sealed first edition toilet paper? What do you think about the price would be in 10 years? Thanks. Love the channel. I don't know. I already took it out of the seal. It's already open for me. It's not used yet, but it's open. The eBay needs to put a little in between new and used, and you put opened. Yeah, who knows? We'll see what's going to happen in the next couple years. Next up, hello, good afternoon. I have 2 quick questions. Ken Sugimori and Mitsuhiro Rita, which artist do you feel has better artwork, and what is your favorite illustration artwork by them? Wow, man, that's really hard to answer. So I'm really bad at pinning down one favorite artwork. Really bad. There's just I just like art too much. Not even just in Pokemon, in general. I appreciate art too much. That's really tough. They both bring something to the table. Sugimori, for me, in general, like Card-Ass 1997 comes to mind. Let's see if I can do this without messing anything up. I always have one of these guys back here. Just absolute peak Sugimori right there. Everything about this. Everything about this. You got Charmander with the spike on his back. I can't even look at this card without having an emotional reaction. That is like peak right there. So that's going to be like the Sugimori, something like this for me. You know, another one is that Neo Rev trainer card where he's like in the field with Dragonite. That's another one comes to mind. Arita, you got Charizard. You have so many, the Reggie Pikachu. There's so many iconic cards. I mean, you're talking like the Goliath of Pokemon artists. So I can't choose one. It's impossible for me to choose one. There's just too many that I like. But those are some that come to mind. Bucker says, do you think sealed WotC product will reach an inflection point where the cost is too high, that it's not worth it to open for grading cards or YouTube revenue, but rather worth it if you hit the big ticket cards? Right now, most product is selling like hotcakes. Skyrid seems to be at that point. However, most WotC is not. Yeah, I think a lot of people are in the same mentality. I think a way to address this is if we go back like 2017, everyone's ripping everything. Everyone's tearing open everything because that cost to grade the card, to flip it, that was easy. It's streamlined. Now it isn't. Just like earlier with the other questions, the pack price is so different now from the card price. So there's not much of an incentive. I think that's going to keep going. I think that's going to keep separating. The more scarce this becomes, I don't know. I'm already surprised at some of the prices. I wouldn't be surprised if you said to me that any WotC box is 10 grand. I wouldn't be surprised at that because there's enough of a buyer pool, that original generation who's like in their 30s now in their careers. It makes complete sense to me. I don't look at things like price ceiling. I just see things as, oh, that might be a quick uptick. It might have a retrace there, but usually that's what boxes do. They go up, they have a little retrace, up, a little retrace. That's normal market activity. But yeah, it's ultimately unanswerable. But the only thing I could say is pack price, card price, they're not connected anymore. There's such a gap between those two. Gem Mint Pokemon, what's up, Zach? Have you made any deals as a direct result of the virus? What changes have you noticed in supply and demand? I've had a little bit, I don't know if I've had some offers come through and I'm like, is this because of COVID? Is it just because of the time? Like maybe that person just wants to offer me a collection. I've had a slight uptick in offers. Keep in mind, I usually get like a collection offer, multiple every week. But yeah, so far I'm pretty tentative. I'm waiting to see how long this is going to go and what's going to be the ultimate effect before I start buying aggressively. But yeah, I haven't noticed much. I've just a couple more options to buy. Nothing too crazy yet. Jan Henrik, what's up, Jan Henrik? Still have your little Southern Island thing up there. Hey Scott, how come you still find so many rare Golden Age Pokemon cards in Japan? That's a good question. It's really hard to articulate how passionate and competitive I am about everything I do. Everything. Every single thing. No matter what it is, I'm someone, when I get into something, I get way into it. Like I taught myself guitar. I played semi-pro soccer. I didn't play soccer in high school. I went into college. I did nothing but want to play soccer. Now I'm playing hockey. I'm playing with like D1 college guys because when I get into something, I really get into it. And that's the biggest part of the equation. Like when people see the trophy cards, it's just an ultimate like scoreboard of that. It's like, I just don't stop. I don't know how to. So that's the main ingredient. And because of that, because of doing that, 10 years, 11 years, 12 years, 15 years, whatever, I've have an inertia now. So people will come to me. Like some of these come from like winners that will like direct message me and say, hey, do you want to buy my whatever it is? And I just buy it. And I think that's probably the biggest pro tip I can give people. Endo Games is the best example. Take it out of me for a second. Endo Games is a large store in Japan. Their buy list for stuff like this is higher than like 90% of flippers, what they're willing to pay. And surprisingly, that's why they end up with a lot of really good cards. And the final point of that is, and they still sell. So that's something I've been doing forever. I've been always buying. If I see a card, I just snap buy it. I remember there was a Trophy Kangaskhan that people were like, wait, maybe I should save $100 on it. Just snap bought that thing. And now it's like 5 times the price. So that might not always happen. That second part might always come true, but that's what I've done for a long time. It creates this inertia now where people will know me as like the trophy card guy. And, I'll get these opportunities, like people will directly message me and say, hey, are you interested in this? This is my price. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So yeah, all of that, select all of that. That's the reason why I think a lot of stuff does gravitate towards me, or I find more of it, is the mixture of like being competitive, passionate, and because of that over time, I get more offers and opportunity. Next up, with all the downtime, what is the best way to organize your Pokemon cards? Probably not the best for organization. I mean, off camera here, I got like boxes of PSA stuff that I still need to process. And, this is my process. I put a check mark on it when it's been scanned. So as for collecting binders, I love binders. My binders are probably the most organized. That's what I look at the most. I could just sit for even like 10 minutes, 30 minutes and just look through binders, even Magic, Pokemon, whatever it is. So binders are really organized for me. For graded cards, they need some work. I have Poke associates that help me organize my grading inventory collection, all of it. But as for binders, I've got that under control. Everything else, I still need to learn how to organize. I just have too much stuff. Garrett says, hey, hope you're doing well. What did you experience with the collectibles market in 2008? Crash. With the uncertainty right now, have you personally adjusted your buying, selling strategy? Are you anticipating a delay response in the market? Again, tying in the other questions, 2008 is a different animal. The market was smaller. The reasons for why the market changed were different. We're seeing new reports now that we might see a similar unemployment rate. It's yet to happen. So far, I've seen nothing. In a month, that might change. In 2 months, that might change. But so far, I haven't seen anything. I don't think it's going to be like 2008, not only because the market was smaller then and it's larger today, but you didn't have social media. Everything's so immediate now. You find out everything immediately. Things move so quickly. Even the reaction of the stock market is because you get immediate news, a tweet, or whatever, and the market reacts to that. So back then, things were a little bit slower. Just trying to highlight the differences and variables there. So I think we might see some similarities, but every recession is different. Justin asks, what is your least favorite WotC set? Wow. This is good. This is really good. People know what it's going to be. We got 2. Legendary Collection and Base Set 2. Both bottom of the barrel. For me, it's, again, unique artwork is like it. That's like it for me as a collector. I just love unique artwork. And when you combine it with some type of challenge, it's like, I just can't help myself. Like I just fly towards it like a bug light. And I think a lot of people in that boat. If you could choose the same cost of card, but one unique artwork, one reprint, most people are probably going to go for the unique artwork majority of the time. And again, Legendary Collection and Base 2 sat dead in the water for years. In the recession in 2008, they didn't move because they were already as low as they could go. So they didn't move for like probably 15 years. And then all of a sudden with social media, they've grown. And big pro tip for Legendary Collection, the largest amount of listings with the least amount of sales. That's inorganic activity right there. So those are my least favorite because, again, they're reprinted. If you love those sets, more power to you. I'm not trying to, say you shouldn't enjoy what you enjoy. But that's my take on them, is that they are reprinted. I'm not big on the reprint stuff. I really like that unique art. And another point is Base Unlimited is so common. It's like, there's like 100,000 Charizards Base Unlimited. So for me, it's like, why do you need base 2? Why do you need that? You don't need it. I know you're going to hear the Cosmo Hollow, but because base unlimited is so affordable to this day, that would be my go-to. And that's what we grew up with. Most people grew up with base unlimited, so that's why I'm like, it's just not needed. So there you go. That's my hot take. Chris says, what are your thoughts on the downturn in vintage Magic? Do you see it echoing Pokemon? No. They're separate. I don't think the downturn in Magic is actually that crazy. Sure, buy list prices can change and fluctuate. That's not a direct connection even to the Magic market. Buy list price might be the business's risk appetite change. There's a lot behind that. They might just be looking at steel product more or something else. You know, there's a lot of reasons for why people change their buy list price. And I don't think it's as crazy as people think. At least on my end, I do mostly vintage. I'd love to see where these price drops are because I'm actively buying stuff. But yeah, and it definitely doesn't have a connection to Pokemon. Next up, hey Pratt, love the videos. Why do you prefer sealed product over other collectibles in Pokemon? Well, I don't. I'm not big. I mean, sealed product is good, but I don't have a huge boner for sealed product. I think it's easy. I think it's accessible. I think it's a great starting point. I think it's very diverse. There's a lot there that can happen with it. You know, it's like a buckshot. It can hit, or a birdshot. It can hit a lot of things at once. But it's not my wheelhouse. My wheelhouse is more the higher end stuff, the promos, trophy cards, things like that. But yeah, I mean, I have appreciation for everything. Like I have a little bit of everything. So yeah, it's not something I really prefer more than something else. But yeah, I definitely have some of it. Ryan says, my close buddies and I always like to surprise Zero with cards we know they would like. Do you have any close friends you do this with? Actually, yeah, that's a really good question. I do. There's certain people that I know they like a certain artist or they'll like a certain Pokemon. And, you know, some of these, like, I think a great idea for binders, by the way, is to do like an artist binder with all the artist cards. I think that's a really good idea. And it's usually affordable. It's just really cool to see like the growth and the change over time. So I've been doing that with some of my friends. You know, some of these cards like under $1, and it's really fun because they get excited because they just like the artwork. So yeah, I think that's a fun thing to do, and I do it. Halo, my ego, I like that. What is your favorite shiny Pokemon? Also like that. Again, it's really hard for me to pick one, but S tier that comes to mind: Magikarp, Gyarados, Ponyta, Rapidash, Ditto, Mew, Light Mewtwo. The worst, Plusle, Gengar. Oh my god. Why didn't they make Gengar white? I know they made Mega Gengar white. Just make shiny Gengar white. Just change it right now. Change it right now, Pokemon. That would have been so cool if Gengar was white as shiny. That would have been so cool. Anyway, my favorites are probably going to be like Magikarp, Gyarados, the Ponyta. Just right now. I wanted the Pony. I did so many walks. I walked like that one piano song. I walked everywhere looking for that Ponyta. Couldn't find it. I won that thing so bad. So that's one that comes to mind. Ryan says, do you still have your little sports rack collection, referring to the video about a decade ago? Tell us a little bit about that. How are you coping with no hockey? Yeah, I do. It's off camera over here. I actually just got back from the Hockey Hall of Fame and bought the Vegas Knights because I didn't have them. I think I have pretty much every single one that's out. For those who aren't aware, they're like these little keychain guys. I grew up with them, started collecting them. They're actually a really fun thing to collect. Very affordable, usually like $5 to $20 at most. Very fun thing to do. Just little hand-painted guys with your favorite teams, different eras. Yeah, I still slowly do them. I'm looking at them right now. Maybe I'll do another video. Probably get maybe like 100 views because people are like, there's no Charizards here. But yeah, I still do it. I have so many collections going on at the same time. So that's one I think that I do every now and then, every month or so. I'll pick up one here and there. But again, I've pretty much caught them all basically because they are more affordable and super niche. They're really niche. Happy Zebra says, what do you think about the Black Triangle air packs? They're cool. They're a cool moment. I don't really think they're just, for me, they're just purely pack collector value. You know, obviously if you open it up, it wouldn't make any sense. So that's what I see them as. I'm like, okay, if you want to do all the packs, it's cool to have like first edition, Shadowless long, Shadowless short, you know, Triangle pack unlimited. I think it's cool for pack collecting, just a moment in time. But, you know, I don't think it's as great as first edition or Shadowless, but I think it is a cool moment in time what it was. For those who don't know, WotC printed everything out like a madman, and they printed out some unlimited cards in first edition packs. And like, wait, we just need to throw this black triangle on there, and you know, to cover up that first edition stamp. So that's the origin for those who aren't aware. And yeah, they're just for pack collectors. They fill that void between Shadowless and unlimited. Burndo says, greetings, Scott. Since you already have enough meme questions to answer, I'll be serious here. One of my favorite Celebi cards is a promo. It was a hollow, non-hollow version of Celebi surrounded by clocks like Salvador Dali. That's good. I like that. I like that take. Now I'm wondering, why do you pronounce Celebi like that? All right. We had to do this on Discord. There's no official pronunciation on Pokemon. Is it Rayquaza, Rayquaza, Tyranitar? You know, there's so many. I remember one time we're like sitting here like Rayquaza, 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 Rayquaza. Celebi, I just saw it as like celebrity. I know it's like celery, Celebi. I know I hear both of it, but my pronunciation of Pokemon, sometimes I hear it for the first time when I do my videos. I say them in my head. Is, you know, some people say Kyogre weird or Groudon weird. Pinsir, I've heard Pinsir. Everything. Tangela, Tangela. Yes, these are real. So, there is no official pronunciation. And Celebi and Celebi are both phonetically correct as far as I'm concerned. Patrick Day says, would you still make the comparison of Chalice first edition base to Alpha and Beta? Are the thoughts about Chalice the same from videos a few years back? So when I made that video, it was just a general comparison. Obviously, Alpha is rarer and Alpha and Beta are rarer than first edition Chalice, but it's a general connection because a lot of what we're doing in collecting is this impressionistic thing. You know, we're not going in an overly literal sense and like, well, this is exactly like this, so I'm only going to collect this if it's like this. So what I meant by that is they have a very, very similar vibe. Like first edition base is very similar to Alpha for me. Chalice is very similar to Beta. Unlimited, Unlimited. Revised, base 2. There's even fourth legendary, if you really want to tie that all in. I think it's a similar perspective because WotC did both of them. I think it's a similar mentality. Again, it's not identical. They're not identical twins, but I think there's a lot there to borrow from each other, and it's a good way to segue for both sides of the camp there. If you're coming from Pokemon, you can understand Alpha a little bit better. If you're coming from Magic, you can understand first edition base a little bit better. That was really the only general parallel I was drawing. Clearly, Alpha is much rarer. Those are older sets as well. And also the playability aspect's much different. The Charizard VMAX that's coming out now is like, what, 300 HP? And back in the day, we were like 120 is crazy for Charizard. Now it's like triple that. So Magic, it's the opposite. Like the power's in the beginning and it depreciates over time. Where Pokemon, it just keeps appreciating. So yeah, there are differences, but it was just a general comparison, mostly for people who are, you know, cross collectors. This next question, man. Dave says, do you live with your parents? Oh my God. No joke. I had a call with someone who genuinely thought I lived with my parents. Maybe one day, right now I live with my grandparents. Maybe one day I can make enough money and afford to live with my parents. And then maybe by the time I'm like 50 or something, I can live on my own. But oh my God, it's so funny. I love, you gotta love the different interpretations, the different perspectives there in the world. But yeah, no, I definitely don't. Stefan says, glad to see you're doing well. My question is, did you see the Sonic the Hedgehog movie? If so, how'd you feel about it? Thanks again for all your videos and effort you put in the community. I haven't seen it yet. I'm not too hot on the new stuff. Like even Detective Pikachu, I feel like I could have done a little bit more. Just talk to a serious collector for a little bit. You could have got a little bit more, you know, a couple more specific things in there. Overall, I think it's a net positive, but it's something I haven't seen yet. I'll probably enjoy it, but I really just like the original Sonic stuff that I grew up with. Next up, how will the value of first edition Dark Blastoise be affected? Asking for a friend, D-Blast. Well, D-Blast, there's only one answer here, and you didn't, or one question, you didn't delete it, so I'll answer it for you. I don't think Dark Blastoise is like one of those things that I think is always constantly underrated. So, yeah, I don't think it's going to have any issue. Okay, next up, what happened to your girlfriend? She's only been in one video, and I thought I remember you saying she would be in more. She was in one video. She's a little too snarky for some of the people. I didn't do a good job in editing the questions, but she'll be in more. Might do a box break or something. Yeah, that's what will happen eventually. Next up, Pierce. Good to see Pierce in here. What do you think about the prices for PSA 10 first edition Jungle Fossil Hollows? A lot of them sat at 200, 500 forever. Some are over 1K now, even with 100 copies in the pop. It's interesting because you can buy an BGS 95 Alpha Rare from Magic for less than some of these hollows. Pokemon Market starts to flex its buyer pool versus vintage MTG or hype-driven spike. Will this retrace considerably? That's a very technical, advanced question, and I think the general answer is Pokemon is driven more by sentimentality, and I think a bit of hype right now. There's a decent chunk of hype that needs to be acknowledged, but there's not enough supply, I think, to really nullify that hype. So a lot of people are on the WotC train. A lot of people will always be on the WotC train. I don't think, basically how I see it is, if you had to say every person who grew up with Pokemon is in the market, that's never going to happen. You know, even financial institutions, they're always trying to do outreach because the total amount of people even in stocks and things like that, I don't even know if it's 50%. So they're always constantly doing outreach, and that's the largest market. Collectibles are so niche, so you're constantly in this process of like trying to get new interest in. I don't think Pokemon's even close to being max capacity, so 100 copies of me is not enough. You know, if you said 1,000, I'd be like, okay, all right, that's something different. But so I think it's just, again, there's no cheaper option. I don't know how people can find this stuff. I remember prices from years ago, but that availability has drastically changed. So until that changes, I think it's just going to stay. Mark One says, love the new trophy toilet paper set. Maybe we could work out a deal for this unused set back here, this open set. Electric Type says, hey Scott, it almost appears that the Generation 4 boxes are being eaten up and are becoming hard to find. Would you say that upon initial release, there are more or less injected into the market in comparison to Generations 1 and 2? That's a good question. Gen 4 is experiencing an uptick now, piggybacking off of the hype. They're just echoing the same thing over and over. And I'm not denying you can make money and there's opportunity there. There's opportunity everywhere right now. But a lot of it isn't organic. You know, people aren't breaking like Heart Gold, Soul Silver to get that $3 prime. You know, when you're paying $500 for those boxes and you're breaking them, it's entirely because of this raffle master trend that's happening. So that's a lot of the reason why you're seeing an uptick on prices is because of that process. I don't see it as being organic. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if there isn't enough supply, I don't know how it's going to go the other way. But it just further separates this thing we keep talking about. Pack prices, sealed product versus cards. That's what's happening right now. If you get on Facebook, Instagram, you're seeing people going for these 4th gen boxes because they are more affordable. As for injecting in the market or quantity, I wouldn't say there's as much Gen 4 as there was Gen 1 or 2, because Gen 4 was not only lackluster design, low amount of people participating. So definitely not as much. As Dizzle, what's up, Dizzle? Hey, Scott, Dizzle here. If you were to just get back into collecting today, as in 2020, opposed to when you did in your college days, would it look the same? It's a very good question. Actually, someone asked me this in Patreon, and yeah, it's just a good general thought experiment. Would your first purchase look different, or would you even the way you go with purchases change, or would things remain pretty similar? Curious to hear your thoughts, and always thank you so much for all the hard work put in the community. Love to see you keeping it positive. Appreciate that. Yeah, as I said in Patreon, it's kind of tying in what I said earlier about the golden era cards. The core of me is just, I get so into things, that's always going to be the same. Now, obviously, I wouldn't be able to buy as much. Well, the interesting thing is my capital is higher now. I'd really have to go into this and like do the math. My capital is much higher today than it was in college. So basically the parameters have stayed pretty even. While the cost of cards is lower, my capital was also lower then. Now the cost is higher, my capital is much higher. So I don't know, what those ratios look like, but I would say it would be mostly similar. There might be certain cards, like for example, Tropical Wind 2001 comes to mind. That thing to this day, it's the only PSA9 copy, the one on eBay that have a crazy high price, only PSA9 copy in over 10 years. That's one where it's like, if I didn't get it at that time, I don't know how else I could get it. Some of these cards, even if you have $1 billion, you could be Jeff Bezos right now and say, I want to buy every Pokemon card. Some just simply won't appear. Some just won't appear. So that would be my biggest struggle. But in general, that core is still there. And I would do and process, the same way. And I would probably start like I did, Southern Island, go from what I knew, and keep going and going and going. It might take a little bit longer, but I would still, be on the same path ultimately. Just different scenery really. Like that Tropical Wind, that might not pop up because that is definitely based on timing. There were definitely some timing things that happened there that I don't think could happen today. And it's not a capital issue. You can have Rosebud GTA 5 money and you still can't locate some of those cards. Next up, great video as always. What do you think about Southern Island promos? Do you think they are underrated for having some of the most beautiful artwork in the hobby? By the way, keep up the great work. I think Southern Island's constantly underrated, but I'm also biased because I can't. I just love Southern Island. Like, there's nothing about it. I just love everything about it. Like, everything. And more specifically, I love Japanese Southern Island. Like, that's the one I grew up with. Even less competitive than English. English at least has, like, that difficulty to grade scarcity thing. I grew up with the Japanese because Japanese was the first to come out in, like, the 90s. And, you know, the cool kids at Toys R Us on Saturday would have that. And I'm like, what is this ladybug thing? What is this, like, peekaboo jumping out of the water? Like, what is this? I need to have it. And also what's cool about the Japanese Southern Island is you see those Gen 2 Pokemon with the original layout. Like, I don't know if a lot of people know that, but it doesn't have that Neo design that every other set does with Gen 2. Southern Island is the only one in Japanese that doesn't have that Neo layout. You got the old original back, old original card style with the Gen 2 Pokemon. And that's the only set that has that. So to me, it looked so clean. Like, that every single card, like every single one. I just love. This is how nerdy I was with it. I would count the Pokemon in the background because that was a big deal. I count every single one and I'll memorize, like, okay, Pidgeot has like 4, or like, you know, Mew also has 4, where like the whole other side with Mayor only had like 1 or 2. Anyway, off the therapy chair, I absolutely adore Southern Island. It's like everything that this hobby's about. It's got everything going on, and it's very affordable even to this day. Like I said, if I had to go back and start over, I would start with Southern Island. It's very affordable. It's a great starting place. Next up, Brian says, will we ever see a collab video with Gary and Scumbag Pratt? Does Gary have a scumbag alter ego? I don't know if there's an imposter Gary out there. Imposter Gary Oak. That would be fun. I don't know what we could do. Whenever I visit Gary again, maybe we can come up with something. It's always hard with Scumbag Pratt because the thing is, I'm too happy to do Scumbag Pratt. Like, people will throw ideas at me and I'm like, I just don't really care that much about these things. Like, so the Scumbag Pratt is like build up over time. Like, fine, I'll make a video on it. So I really have to get a good topic to sink my teeth into. TCG Authority says, sup dude, do you personally invest in any vintage product past WotC? I mean, I buy everything. Everything. I have something of everything. Yeah, it's hard to say. I buy a little bit of everything. Jokebag says, what's your first Pokemon card and would you ever grade it? Very good question. Electrode Unlimited comes to mind from base. That's the one I remember the most. I remember pulling that, going to Toys R Us. I think I bought a blister pack. 3 blister packs. God, for $3, I think, each. That was like a big deal. That was a huge deal back then. That was a huge deal. I spent like $10 on 3 packs. That was a huge deal. And I remember pulling, I don't think any of us, my brother and sister, didn't get any hollows. I wonder if they weighed them. Now, you can't weigh blisters. So I don't know what happened, but we just had bad luck and none of us got hollow cards. But I got base Electrode. That's one of the first I can remember. I still have it in my binder when I got back into it. I thought about grading it. I probably should and just keep it here. The thing is, I probably had a card before that. Like, I probably had the starter deck. I actually had the Air Diglett starter deck. So I can't remember my exact first card, but the Electrode, I think, was the first I can remember pulling from a pack. Next up, have you realized how much of a trendsetter you are? Well, okay. Ever since you showed off your sealed video, game collections, others follow suit. Also with the Mew players promo, people showed them off more. We're getting graded, showing them off on YouTube. Congrats, man. Keep up the good work. I mean, I honestly don't think about it. The players promo video, for example, multiple on E4 were like, hey, you ever think about doing a players promo? I was like, yeah, that's a great video idea. So I did it. You know, when people throw suggestions at me, some of them stick. You know, if I see it, if I have the cards on hand, I'll do it. That's literally it for players promo. I think a lot of people think there's like this big brain, like, master plan. The immodest answer is, I don't really need $50 to $100 growth on like set cards or players cards. It's just the conspiracies are just hilarious. But yeah, I don't really think about it. I just sit down in a chair, talk about what I enjoy. Like those videos, it's really other people suggesting them. And I just do, if I have the cards, if it feels right, I just do it. And that's really all there is. I honestly don't put too much thought into it. And I try to keep it that way so I can keep enjoying doing content. Unlimited Spaghetti. Why American people buy toilet paper and guns to prevent the COVID virus? Well, if you did it in Italy, it's working so far, I think, for the U.S. I really don't know what the toilet paper thing is. Like, we've existed so long without toilet paper, like, for so long. Like, why is this the thing? Like, food makes sense. Medicine makes sense. Soap and hand sanitizer makes sense. All of that makes sense. I don't know why toilet paper is a thing. I don't know, but it is. As for guns, that's just a God-given right for Americans. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we could shoot away. We could shoot away Corona. The vaccine is just like, I don't know, dipping your shotgun in hand sanitizer and just, just shooting away the coronavirus. So yeah, I don't know. I really don't know why toilet paper is a thing. When I think about it, I'm like, why is this the thing people are buying? But market demand is what it is. Rattle says, why doesn't PSA add a PSA 11 grade to combat BGS's Black Label? All seriousness, I thought about them doing Gold Label. I just don't think it's, at this point, they shouldn't do it. To me, it's just, I've already said enough about Black Label, but yeah, I know it's a meme question, but I used to think PSA should do another grade to compete. Now I don't think I have that same value. Next up, what do you think about Coral cards? Are they really worth thousands of dollars? PSA 10, yeah, some of them for sure. Giovanni's Nidoking, Jinx, Farfetch'd, Imakuni. These are all really hard to grade. In general, Coral cards are really hard to grade. There might be a decent supply of them. You are not going to find them consistently gem mint. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Ken Sugimori. You're not going to find those consistently gem mint anymore. There's a reason why some of them do earn a premium, like the few I named, because they're genuinely hard to grade. That Nidoking is so hard to grade. Jinx is a pain to grade. There's so many of those that you can look at the pop and they say everything. And even the ones that are easier to grade, the pop is still very low compared to other cards. So yeah, they're definitely hard to grade. Joshua Ottawa says, the Pokemon market seems to be very healthy while the global market is on heavy decline. Thoughts on why that is? Tying in the stuff I said previously, we haven't the coronavirus just hit the water. We're getting the initial ripples. It hasn't reached Pokemon yet. So when that unemployment does change, I think that's when you'll start to see it. But so far, it's brand new. I really don't know what to expect. Again, just tying in the previous stuff I said, lower capital, high quantity cards are probably going to be the worst offender for what you're going to see on the market. Joe Michaels, what are the best alternatives to eBay to purchase Pokemon cards and E4? You pretty much named two big ones. Social media, if you dare. The problem, I'm really trying to be as like middle of the road here about social media. You can get some results, but you're going to do more work. On eBay, it's just, you buy the card, you're done, it comes to you. I don't have time to message someone, hey, what do you take for this? Hey, well, this is what I'm thinking. Will you do friends and family? Will you cover the fees? I don't have time for any of that. I'll even pay a premium to avoid that because time is such a value for me. So if you're in that same camp, eBay's going to be your best example or best option. For ungraded stuff, maybe like TCG Player, Troll and Toad, places like that. In general, eBay's 90%. eBay's got majority of the market. Ray T17, is this the T17? What do you think will happen if the massive stimulus plan doesn't work? Do you think we will have to resort to some sort of central bank digital currency backed by gold or oil? Didn't expect that level of conspiracy that quick, but yeah, that's not going to happen. I'm sorry if this is unpopular for people, but the whole gold-backed money thing is just such a fever dream. It's like, it's not the saving grace people think it is. Currency's backed mainly by the economy, and the GDP growth is much more valuable than any piece of metal. While gold has inertia, it's not going to be this saving grace. It's always those 3 Gs, like gold, gas, and guns in this like doomsday scenario. If you're that apocalyptic, no one's going to give a solitary shit about trading gold. If you're that apocalyptic to where like currency is gone. I don't think that applies anymore to modern economics and the worldwide economy we're in, especially oil. Like look at what oil is doing right now. I mean, I don't see that as an answer. Maybe there's something there that I might be missing, but ultimately I just think we're too far past that. It's like going back to bartering, hunting, gathering. It's just too far back. Next question, ever considered Pokemon Museum? Actually, yes. That has been something that a lot of us have considered. A lot of the serious collectors. I've talked to people who have deep pockets who've thought about it. It's really hard to achieve financially. It's a huge risk. And also, I don't know how it works with Pokemon because they're very strict with their IP. I don't know how that works, that middle ground where you own the cards, but I don't own the IP. I don't know how that works. So, yeah, it's something I'd love to do. I'd love to put cards in a museum. I'm sure they will be there one day. I'm sure I'll put an illustrator somewhere or something, some trophy card somewhere eventually. But so far, it's a dream that a lot of us have had. No one's going to jump that fence until they get confirmation from Pokemon. Next up, what do you think about the Value Gold Stars? I mean, I think they're doing exactly what they should be doing. They're great chase cards, some of the best chase cards. They've really set. There was a moment of inorganic activity with the PSE 10s. I think a lot of that's settled down. Andy says, are you expecting to see more Pokemon activity on eBay and other platforms because people bored at home and need extra funds for lack of work, or less activity because people need to be careful with their money? You'll probably see both. Actually, this is a great example of how markets work. Markets are so diverse. There's no one answer. There's not a bunch of SM Prats. There's a variety of people out there. And just like with cards, there's a variety of cards, variety of conditions, variety of history, intellect, drive, everything. Everything is so mixed and constantly moving. So yeah, you'll have people that are doing one side of that where they need to save money. You'll have people that are bored and have more discretionary income and they want to buy more stuff. That's why markets are so beautiful, because they're always in motion. There's so much going on. They're so vast. They're bigger than every single individual. So yeah, you'll see all of that. You'll see all that activity happening. Joe R says, question, what will you name your town in the new Animal Crossing game? You're a 90s kid, so you must play. I'm thinking Coronaville, Corona Island. Do you have the game? What would you name a town on the island inhabited by you and your animals? I'm more of a Doom guy. I'm also more of a Doom guy. So that's what it would probably be. It'd probably be like, I'd have like islands named after the guns. Like the main central one would be like BFG or something. Big effing city, big effing town, something like that. But yeah, I'd probably name them after the weapons or the enemies in Doom. Chase says, which grade do you think will see the biggest gain percentage-wise in the next 5 years? That's a decent question. I think you've already seen the 9s become the new 10s. Basically, a lot of the 9 prices now, what 10s used to be like 3, 4, 5 years ago. And that's a natural progression. As the 10s go higher, usually the others have some growth, kind of like a ladder. There's more options out there, unlimited as well. It becomes another option. So the lower grade is just another option. And keep in mind, sometimes you're talking specks of whitening. So is the speck of whitening worth thousands of dollars to you? That's your choice as a consumer. But a lot of people, they'll just be like, you know what? Maybe I'll go down and go to the lower grade. But for example, 7s, I think 7s are beautiful. Like this right here is a 7. Beautiful card. Negligible damage on the back, front, perfect. There's plenty of cards like that, and that's 3 down from a 10. So keep in mind, we've been spoiled for a long time with just 10s. I only collect PSC 10s only. Even 7s. There's a reason why stores, their condition quality is played and near mint. Near mint is a 7. So near mint is still a very, very fine condition. The rabbit channel, that is definitely PFM. My question is, are rabbits safe for the coronavirus? How can we protect PFM? This has got to be you, PFM. There's no way someone else is making... It's got to be you, Clara, Train, somebody. It's got to be somebody. So, yeah, you'll be fine. The rabbits are going to be fine. I don't even think they can get it. Next up, what do you think of the spike in prices of unlimited hollows? Kind of piggybacking off of the question about the raids on the come up. Unlimited hollows are just another option. When these other cards go higher, do you want the card with first edition stamp, or do you want the same card without the stamp? That's your choice as consumer. And it's just another option out there. And why I think you're seeing an uptick is because some people might want the same condition, but they don't want the stamp. So they're going to go for, like, let's say Shiny Charizard, PSA 10. That unlimited is probably going to go up if the Shiny Charizard first edition keeps going up. Because if you want the same condition, you can get the same one just without the stamp for a fraction of the price. So I think it's the same mentality with the lower grades. It's just another option. Last few here, last page. Hey Scott, what's your opinion on PSA as a stock? Do you think they will up their prices and maintain profitable portfolio? So PSA is actually a very interesting stock because there's not a lot of... The market cap's low. I know this sounds crazy, but it's not prone for a buyout, but you could really corner a good chunk of PSA. I mean, I'm talking like if you're an actual financial institution or group who's looking to put together some portfolio or something, you could take a good chunk of that stock. So I think that's the opportunity in a macro sense. It's gone from like 15 to like high 20s over and over again. Now it's back down to like 15. It's a weird one. I don't really know. It's hard for me to get an impression from it. It's a low capital stock. It's a low cost stock, but it does move like this a lot. Like a couple years ago, it was like 20 something. Then it went down 15 because they cut the dividend. They do pay a dividend usually. It's a weird stock because PSA is this enigma of a company, very unique company, very unique model. Their stock is probably going to be like that as well. I don't know how to define it. It is a weird identity. So keep that in mind. It's not going to be something like, you know, your growth stocks or your index funds where you can just park it for 10 years. It's something you do have to keep an eye on because, again, it doesn't really move. It stays in at least for the past, like, I think ever. I don't know if it's gone above like 30. So it just stayed in that bracket. So it's a weird identity. Next up, do you think the Pokemon TCG will ever bring in non-Japanese artists illustrate cards? It's a super good question. If they did, what opportunities do you think it would bring? That's a really good question. Because Pokemon is a Japanese franchise, naturally they're going to contract more Japanese artists. I'd like to see, give me a Banksy card. Give me like something that'd be nuts. That would be really cool. Get some of the modern artists. Like you see a lot of the collabs with like non-trading card stuff. Like we've seen multiple now with like those skateboards. There's another one that's coming up. I think it's a sculpture guy person. I don't know if they're a boy or girl. But yeah, it's something you see more on the non-TCG stuff. Even plushes have more collabs going on. It would be cool. I don't know how that all works. Japan is very traditional, which AKA can mean stubborn. So it'd probably take a lot of motivation for them to do that, but I think it'd be really cool. I think people would collect that. Like the Christopher Rush Mewtwo, for example. People collect that card specifically just because the guy who did the Black Lotus did that Mewtwo card. You'd see a lot of that. I think it would be a really fun and successful concept. Hanchin says, I've noticed many people are fast to sell off their stocks and investments, but Pokemon has not seen a significant slump. Do you think this is a result of large demand eating up weak hands, nostalgia holding on, or other factors? Actually, that's a good distinction. We've talked about this already multiple times now. That's a good distinction that I forgot. Collectibles aren't stocks. People really need to understand this. While there's investment opportunity in collectibles, they are not the same animal. So let's say you bought PSA 9 Charizard today at like $6,000. And first edition. Let's say it gets cut in half. What would be the incentive to sell unless you absolutely needed money? Why would you ever sell at half value? Most people, what they're going to do, who can afford to hold, are going to be like, I just like this card and I'm not going to sell it at half the price. That's why inflection points exist, is because it's going to hit that point where it makes absolutely no sense to sell at half value unless you need to, which why, again, low capital cards, high quantity cards, going to be the worst offenders because you're going to run into a lot of people who are living check to check and they need to flip that quick $100. So those are the cards that are going to flip and dip. Where, you know, stuff like your first edition base stuff, I'd be surprised. I mean, for me, it'd be a huge benefit. If I can buy first edition base at a better value, I'm going to buy as much as I can. But I don't realistically see that happening. This marquee stuff, I don't see it happening. There might be some that do dip. There might be some type of general retrace. But the thing people have to understand is that not only collectibles have a different identity and they're sentimental, they're not liquid. We can sit here and pick petals and be like, I would never buy a trophy card because it's not liquid. We could do all this tip fedora like squabbling for the end of time. Not a single Pokemon card is liquid. And liquid is a definition of I can sell my stock in real time. You can't do that with Pokemon. You know, and even when people make that terrible liquid analogy side tangent where they're like, I would never buy a trophy card because it's not liquid. It is absolutely liquid. It's just not liquid at this high premium price. If I put an Illustrator on eBay right now at $100,000, PSA 9, it's gone in an instant. You know, it's more, ironically, the lower tier liquid price of any trophy card is higher than pretty much every step card at its like optimal, you know, highest non-liquid price. So that's always the argument, is like liquidity and things like that for collectibles. They're just different animals. They're not as liquid. They have the sentimentality to them. You know, even the other day I had a guy who said, we take 900,000, some arrogant douche who was like, my offer's going to drop 50,000 every day if you don't accept. Not even listening at 900,000. So I don't care if the economy goes to zero. So there's people like that at the highest end and the lowest end. But again, worst probability, worst scenario is probably going to be low capital cards, high volume, highest potential for being saturated. Last questions here. Pizer says, what's your opinion on PSA 8.5 grades? I actually inadvertently touched on this before with the decimals. I'm not big on the decimals. That's just me. You know, with video games, why I do video game grading is more about preservation and authenticity than the actual grade. I'm not big on the grades for video games. Definitely not as big on the grades for coins. Same mentality. I just like the preservation aspect. I think I got one actually sitting right here. Yeah, this whole, like, when they have the decimals and things like that, I'm just not big on it. I don't want a 9.8, 9.6, even an 8.5. Just give me an 8 or a 9. Even if it goes lower to an 8, I just like the round numbers. That's just me. There might be people who like the 8.5s. They're also somewhat tedious. Sometimes they feel arbitrary. There was a time when there was like this guy at PSA who can only grade 8.5 for some reason. And, you know, they seem arbitrary a bit as well. I like to have the 1 to 10 clean. I don't want to get like the 7.5, the 8.5. Again, that's just my take. I'm not big on the decimals in all hobbies. In a parallel universe where you don't have a better half, would you contract coronavirus if it meant you could take Margot Robbie home after the candlelit dinner? Margot Robbie is like peak physical perfection, and I don't even know how to answer that. Margot Robbie's just a PSA 10. That's all anybody needs to know. A true PSA 10 for XXX cert. Anne-Marie, last but not least, how does someone like myself who hasn't been a serious collector in years find out the value, worth, rarity of the cards I have in my collection? What would be the best resource for me to use to find out this information about my cards? In general, it's going to be multiple. There's no one holistic resource. There's a couple that are trying to get there. Pokemon Price, I think, has the most potential. The guy who does it is super chill, extremely versed in programming. He's definitely got all the variables going on, like has a ton of knowledge in collecting, has the I don't even know what to say, the coding expertise, the resume, basically the perfect storm of what you would want to make a comprehensive resource. But it's so difficult because there's so many things you have to cover. There's so much work you have to do. Even if it's feasible, even if you have the right people to do it, the time and energy it would take. So you got Pokemon Price, you got eBay complete listings, Bulbapedia. Those are probably the big 3 that I'm using right now. E4 for like questions. If you have a question, you say, hey, what's this card? I'm curious, is there another variation? You're going to get someone like Quador who's going to come in there and give you the most comprehensive breakdown possible. And you'll have, there's certain things where you need to engage and ask, the audience and, get a more detailed answer. But yeah, I think those like eBay complete listings, Pokemon Price, E4, Bulbapedia, that's what I use. That's everything. Pretty much everything right there is what I use. I satisfy everything with that. I get everything I need from that. I pepper in Discord a little bit because I get fast information, quick answers, quick question. Be forewarned, Discord is like a lounge. It's a place to hang out. It's not always talk about Pokemon, but you can pop in there, ask a quick question, get a quick answer. But be careful. It can suck away time. You get on Discord, you're like, why is it Christmas now? How did I miss like 5 months and 2 seasons? You can really lose a lot of life in Discord because it's just easy to get lost. But anyway, E4, Bulbapedia, eBay, Pokemon Price. That's all I use myself. Maybe PSA Pop Report's another one as well. So there it is, guys. Hopefully this was useful, entertaining, something positive for you in this time. This CoVideo was useful for your COVID-19 quarantine that you're experiencing. Again, I always do these through Patreon. Every single month, I'm doing these through Patreon. They're a similar time. I do a monthly market recap that lasts about 40 minutes or so, where I do a detailed analysis of the market, talk about what I buy, sell, underrated, overrated. And then after that, in the middle of the month, I do a Q&A just like this every month. So there it is. I appreciate the support. Just going to keep on keeping on. That's what I got. Deal. Let me know how you feel. Till next time, guys.